two employees of a small-town pizza restaurant are found dead.
Police believe 48-year-old Valerie Looney and her husband, 52-year-old Harvey Looney, were killed sometime between 11:30 Sunday night and 7 o'clock Monday morning.
This is something that you think will never happen in your life.
Harvey, who also went by Dean, and his wife, Valerie, had been married for 29 years. They had one son named Christopher and had always lived in the small town of Claypool Hill. Harvey and Valerie were very well known in the area and were very loved. Valerie started working at Pizza Plus in 1998 and Harvey joined her soon after. They enjoyed working together and did what they could to provide for their son.
911, where's your emergency? I just come in to Pizza Plus and I found the manager laying in a pool of blood and her husband's laying out the back door. Okay, you need to get out of the store and I don't want you touching anything, okay? Is it husband and wife? They both work here. Valerie Looney and Harvey Looney.
On March 30, 2009, an employee of Pizza Plus called 911 around 8:40 a.m. She said she walked into the restaurant and found her manager lying in a pool of blood. Valerie had been found in the kitchen. She had been severely beaten and her throat had been slashed. There was blood all over the pizza oven, the storage rack, and the table. Harvey had been found just outside the back door. His throat had also been cut, but later it would be revealed that Harvey had actually died from a stroke. The cut to his throat had occurred afterwards. The killer had tried to clean up on the way out of the restaurant. A bloody mop was found near the door and a bloody fire extinguisher had been put back in its place. There were blood drops found in the sink. The blood samples were collected and taken to the crime lab. The 911 caller was interviewed by the police. She mentioned that there was some illegal drug activity going on at the car wash that was next door to Pizza Plus. The owner of the car wash would come into the restaurant and talk to Valerie. Valerie had mentioned to her that she was scared of the man that came in. That man was questioned. He said he did go to Pizza Plus that night, but just sat in his car and didn't go inside. The surveillance footage did clear him. It was odd, but he wasn't the killer. The next person the police looked into was a delivery driver named Brian. Harvey and Valerie's son, Christopher, told the police that this employee had issues with Valerie. The delivery driver did admit that they fought often, but he left the restaurant around 11:15 p.m. He said he went to a friend's house, which the friend confirmed. The delivery driver was also ruled out. The police received many tips about the case. One tip was from an inmate at the Tazewell County Jail. The man said he heard from a local bartender that she and two of her friends had driven to the restaurant to rob it. The bartender apparently told him that she thought that her friends killed Harvey and Valerie.
She began crying, talking, and she was saying it wasn't supposed to happen that way. So what the hell was she talking about? And she said, I should have never took him. I said, well, come down. What are you talking about? Tell me what you're talking about. She was saying, Jared and Rat. One of the guys' name, his name was Rat.
Rat.
She said, they told me they think they killed him. She said it wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to rob the place.
They actually told her that they killed the two.
That they killed him, that they struggled with.
This also turned out to be a dead end. The bartender never told anyone anything like that, and the inmate was full of something strange. The bartender was also ruled out. The police went back to the crime scene. They weren't able to find anyone else's DNA at the crime scene. Valerie's DNA was found on the fire extinguisher, and there was a mix of Valerie and Harvey's blood in the sink. On April 3rd, 2009, Valerie and Harvey were laid to rest. The case went cold for several years. The police didn't have any new suspects or leads. In October 2012, Detective Michael Hall was assigned full-time to the Looney's case. He went back to the crime scene and had the evidence reanalyzed. Detective also had a behavioral analyst from the FBI come up with a profile on their killer. The FBI agent said that their killer was a male in his 20s, 30s with a high school education and who was familiar with the operations of Pizza Plus. By November 2012, the police had their sights set on Christopher. Christopher was cooperative but only answered yes or no questions. Christopher was interviewed again and passed a polygraph test. In January 2013, the police interviewed Lenny Clark, the couple's friend and godmother of Christopher. They learned that Lenny had learned that Christopher had been violent towards Valerie just a few weeks before she died. Lenny had discovered bruises on Valerie, which she confessed that they came from Christopher. The police learned that Christopher was in need of money and had been living with his parents at the time of their murders. He had been the beneficiary of his parents' $240,000 life insurance, which he never collected. On February 13, 2013, Christopher sat down with Sergeant Neil Turley and a professional interrogator named Rich Byington. They confronted Christopher about his lies. Back in 2009, Christopher had told the police that he wasn't alarmed when his parents didn't come home on March 30, 2009. As it was their 29th wedding anniversary. Christopher said they had planned to go to the Smoky Mountains for a trip they planned. The police actually learned that Christopher and Harvey had planned to go fishing instead. The police also told Christopher that the killer would have left behind touch DNA at the crime scene, even if they were wearing gloves. Rich Byington told Christopher that he needed to tell them what happened. Christopher then whispered that it was an accident.
I know you wrote a statement and I've looked at it. Why don't we go back the day before your parents' murder?
Went to work that morning. Got off work around 12, so they only work half a day on Saturdays.
Would it surprise you to know that when I talked to the dentist, he told me he and your dad had a fishing trip planned for that day?
Mm-hmm.
And yet your dad never mentioned to him that he couldn't go fishing because he was taking your mother out of town. Even if the person was wearing gloves, you can still leave DNA at the scene. Do you realize that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a thing called touch DNA. Okay, so even though I'm wearing gloves, if my arm brushes against the counter, let's say, I'm going to leave skin cells on the counter.
Tell me what happened. You got to help yourself. You got to help your daughter. Talk to me. I'm not going to lie to you.
on Mom. Cut her.
And what'd you cut her with?
A knife.
Where did you cut your mom at?
On her neck. And that's when I went back inside.
Back inside to do what?
To make sure Mom was not moving.
Okay, what did you use?
I hit her with the fire extinguisher.
Hit her with the fire extinguisher. What'd you do with the fire extinguisher?
I'll put it back
Put it back where?
where it was hanging. On the way out, that's when I was mopping
Mopping.
the foot tracks.
Okay. Is there anything else that I need to know for you to help yourself that you need to tell me?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of capital murder. On July 23, 2014, Christopher pled no contest to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison. So, young agents, write down what do you think about this case. Thanks for watching this episode, and if you're a fan of true crime like I am, I hope that you would consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. Bye.